This is a really important, I think, clip. It's in Hebrew.
Yeah.
And I should say, lo medaber ivrit. Ani lo medaber ivrit.
Can you translate what you just said?
I
for
don't
me?
speak Hebrew.
Okay.
In fact, that's the only thing I know how to say in Hebrew. I know how to say like shil, which is diarrhea.
Oh,
and,
good. That's useful.
Yeah, these are experiences I had when I was a kid. I was in Israel. And so that was basically it. I knew how to say two things.
There you go.
And that was basically dominant in my experience.
Will that be helpful in trying to translate this clip?
I don't even know how to say I don't know. But I do know how to say low.
Yeah.
As in no.
Okay.
But this is Panos on an Israeli public broadcast. They're discussing, reporting about a meeting that Prime Minister Netanyahu had with sort of some backbenchers in the Likud. He is desperately trying to hold on to power. Mm-hmm. And he knows he needs to maintain this war, essentially, to stay in power, because he's also afraid of going to jail for corruption charges.
Yeah.
But he also knows that there's increasing pressure to discontinue this war. I think probably not in the least bit, because the IDF is starting to realize, like, we're not going to get rid of Hamas.
I mean, there's no clear military objectives, but again, I still, even that framing, everyone has to understand that the military objectives are secondary to the collective punishment of the Palestinian people and the prevention of any self-determination. That's the framing you have to go into it.
Well, exactly. But from a military standpoint, they're not going to get rid of Hamas. They're just going to come out and say, we damaged Hamas this much or that much. But the U.S. government is supposedly now adding more pressure in terms of, like, you can't go willy-nilly like you did if you start this up again. And so he's got to go in there and basically sell to his party members in the Likud that he's the guy that they want in office, even if there is no war. We're just going to play a little clip of this, but obviously there's no translation. Go play just a little bit of clip, and then we'll read from the report on this.
אמש ראש הממשלה בשיחות בשבוע האחרון עם חברי כנסת בליכוד, עם מבחר של דברים שהוא אומר על היום שאחרי הלחימה בעזה. אתה מביא את הציטוטים.
נכון מאוד, מיכל. נתניהו נפגש עם כ10 חברי כנסת בליכוד רק בשבוע האחרון, רובם אגב מסוף הרשימה חברי כנסת.
Okay, all right, so that's the guy reporting on what Netanyahu said. And this report is coming from the Times of Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly met with at least 10 backbenchers in his Likud Party over the past week in an effort to ensure their continued support. And he obviously, my guess is, he obviously met with one who doesn't want him to stay in, and that's why we hear about this, or, this thing. And this is a quote from the piece. This is according to the Khan public broadcast that we just heard. I'm the only one who will prevent a Palestinian state in Gaza, and this is in parentheses, the West Bank after the war.
This is sort of the same way he used to talk about, we need to support Hamas if we want to avoid a Palestinian state.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a paraphrase, but we have direct quotes to that effect.
We have quotes of similarly speaking to the Israeli press of these Likud Party meetings. And by the way, the Likud Party is ideologically mostly in lockstep with Netanyahu. They just are fearful about, his judicial reforms and his kind of
I don't know. The Likud Party has a problem with that, but in terms of the Israeli public.
Right, exactly. Even if they may want a different figurehead if public opinion gets too difficult. I
think that he's just seen as incompetent, and politically he's a liability in terms of the Likud Party. But that is a completely distinct set of questions relative to their agenda. He's not pushing, this is what we should do to prevent a Palestinian state. He's pushing the idea that I'm the most competent person to inhibit a Palestinian state. So when we talk about the idea of having a partner in peace, et cetera, understand that for years we were told there's nobody sitting across the table from the Israelis in terms of wanting a partner for peace. This is the agenda of the ruling party in Israel. It is to inhibit Palestinian sovereignty. Now, and the idea of a like a one state solution, a democratic state, multi-ethnic, multiracial democratic state, that's not even on the table.
No. The two-state solution, the reason I think liberals for many decades and continue to, I think it's a false hope, but have propped that up is because it's the most realistic way to, in theory, appeal to some of these Israeli hardliners. But even that, as Biden openly talks about how we need to move towards a two-state solution, the partner that he's working with here, the Israeli government, the ruling party there, is saying we are explicitly trying to undercut those efforts.
And on top of that, the next graph, Netanyahu reportedly told the Likud lawmakers that the Biden administration did not want Israel to launch a ground incursion into Gaza and did not want the IDF to enter Gaza's city's Shifa hospital. Netanyahu reportedly boasted about having gone against U.S. wishes in both those cases. In other words, he's like, I don't have to even listen to Biden. And the point isn't just that he doesn't have to listen to Biden. The point is he doesn't have to listen to Biden, and there hasn't been $1 worth of aid or military equipment withheld.
And we act like he is listening to us.
And Ben Cardin, after we did have those encouraging comments from Chris Murphy saying that maybe we should condition aid to Israel, Ben Cardin, who's
chair of the Foreign
Relations Committee, says, I don't want to do that.
Great Isaac Schottener interview with him over the break, actually.
And this should be, this should be the first question that Ben Cardin gets when Netanyahu, to cement his power in the Likud, brags about not listening to Joe Biden or to the United States. And he says, I've known Joe Biden for more than 40 years. I know how to speak to the American public. Netanyahu's told the Likud lawmakers in
Do you?
individual.
Do
well,
you? Because public opinion is kind of, he knows how to speak to American politicians, but he should look at the poll in the United States. But I guess that's just TikTok.
I mean, the polls notwithstanding, he's still being able to deliver completely without any sort of he's bragging about it.
Yeah.
He's bragging about it. This is the way he's going to stay into power because he's able to essentially roll Joe Biden and
walk him like a dog.
And this is the bottom line. He is bragging to the Likud people like, look, they didn't want us to do this. They didn't want us to do that. They're telling us now, reportedly, and this is coming out of, at least this is what the administration wants the U.S. public to believe, essentially. According to the New York Times, U.S. has warned Israel that it must fight more surgically and avoid further mass displacement of Palestinians in its war against Hamas to avoid a humanitarian crisis that overwhelms the world's ability to respond. Now, in my assessment, this is being couched in the terms of just humanitarian, as opposed to the Biden administration saying, this is no longer politically viable for us to essentially give you this carte blanche, at least publicly. White House has told Israel that replicating the scale of its bombardment in northern Gaza as it makes an expected push into southern Gaza once the recent pause in fighting ends would produce a crisis beyond the capacity of any humanitarian support network, officials said on Monday night. The United Nations has said fighting has already displaced Gaza's population of 2.2 million. Among other things, American officials have told Israelis that any coming military operations should not hamper the flow of power and water or impede the work of humanitarian sites as hospitals and UN-supported shelters, to the extent that there's any left, supported shelters in South and Central Gaza. The Israeli government was receptive to the request, one official said. Really? Because that official should go take a look at what they're reporting in Israeli media, that Netanyahu is bragging.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything they say, and they still give me everything that I want.
Receptive in the sense that they received it and then put it in the receptacle.
Yeah, I love the diplomatic language is so great. They need to be more surgical, as if they were being surgical beforehand.
I mean, it's a dark laughter, but at least 15,000 Palestinians
Jerome Bettis
dead.
needs to be more ballerina-like.
6,000 children.
And now Kirby is out there saying that, our team has prioritized getting much needed relief into Gaza. I think at the very least that regardless of whether they're doing anything or not, the pressure that they're feeling from public protests, from increasingly, just the public polling, the administration realizes that at the very least there is a political liability to them associated with this, and so there is value, I think, in it's aside from the moral obligations that I think people feel as a political matter. It is, at the very least, squeezing the Biden administration a little bit.
And then let's zoom out about the political matter. What is Netanyahu's incentive to create a hospitable environment for re-election for Joe Biden at this point? Netanyahu, if he wants to remain in power, wants Trump back. There's no question. So the Biden administration has to maybe get its head out of its ass and start to question what Netanyahu is imposing on them from a domestic political perspective, and what their interest would be in getting Likud out of, at least Netanyahu, but also not empowering the Likud Party, which has openly basically said that they do not believe in any Palestinian statehood and they want Israel control from the river to the sea. And if those kinds of partners are somebody that's are worth propping up, and the U.S. could use its leverage to disempower Netanyahu, and then basically he can't go to the public in Israel anymore and say, I have the U.S. in my back pocket if the Biden administration chooses to actually have some foresight.
Now, there's
here.
plenty of time for self-preservation after we, complain about the left noticing reality for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, and we should say that within the context of the ruling government in Israel, which is a parliamentary system, Likud is like the moderates.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear about that. The other parties involved, and I think they have I'm not sure if it's like a 65 to 55.
76 to 44.
76 to 44 is basically some fascist far-right parties and then some ultra-Orthodox fundamentalist partners. That's basically it.
I mean, Smotrich, the finance minister,
and I should say,
is a part. Sorry.
I will say that since October 7th, there has been a slight shift in that because there's been a unity government. But once this dies down,
Yes.
that's what the basis of his power was.
But the basis of his power was also, Likud and their partnerships to create a government with people like Smotrich, who is a member of the Religious Zionist Party and is an extremist settler himself, who was also quoted, I believe, today, saying that there are 2 million Nazis in the West Bank. So the Biden administration should try to at least wake up partially to the people that they've decided to link arms with here, because it's not going to end well for them, let alone obviously the moral considerations of partnering with far-right fascists who
I
want
think
to
Joe
kill people.
Biden is honestly just living in 1973.
Yeah.
And it's all, he still has...
You see on TV and that sort of hazy.
It's
Sure.
all it's all Radon and Tebby and
Well, then can Antony Blinken live in the 90s at the very least? Because I'd be more appreciative of that.
Wasn't his first tweet to write, I don't know if he did a ceasefire and
Yeah.
then he
On the
immediately
8th,
deleted
or maybe the 10th, it was, I agree with the Turkish diplomats that we should do a ceasefire and immediately start to release hostages.
And then all of a sudden the phone rings and he's like, what, seriously?
Oh,
Yeah.
we can't say that?
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Oh, we have to act like ceasefire and hostages are opposed for some reason?
I didn't
Okay,
know.
let's do that for a month and a half.
And lastly, New York Times reports that according to the Israeli military, they arrested at least 71 Palestinians from across the occupied West Bank, where there is no Hamas, just over the weekend on unspecified charges.
Unspecified is doing a lot of work there.
The Palestinian Authorities Commission gave the number at least 112. So, I mean, we don't know. But
I mean, there are thousands of Palestinians detained in Israeli jails that are there on unspecified charges.
Yep.
Often they are teenage boys and who are detained, or just younger people for misdemeanors like rock throwing at tanks and other things, or there's no justification whatsoever. So the raw numbers of the 150 that Israel released pale in comparison to the long imprisonment of Palestinians without justification.